Hello and welcome to the North Bank podcast with me, producer Chris, and away in Steph. Hello, mate.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Just to say, Holly's not with us. He's on his way to Ireland, I think, or maybe even there. So, hello, Holly, wherever you are. We had a game of football yesterday, Steph, and you were there.
Yeah, I was. It was a interesting day. I have to say I'm quite grateful to Holly because knowing he's gone back to Ireland and he was happy to transfer the ticket. So I took my nephew and I took my father-in-law. My nephew was quite excited because I took him to his first Arsenal game, which was Ipswich at home, which we won 1-0. But he was quite disappointed not to see Saka because Saka had not long been injured after the Palace game. So he was quite excited to see him yesterday. He was a little bit disappointed when I said, well, he's probably not going to start because we've got Real Madrid coming up and we need him fit. But he came on towards the end and he was very excited about that. And do you know what? He got to see quite a good goal as well. I think that's worth sort of mentioning. And I think he has very much a newfound appreciation for Declan Rice, who was all things to all men again in another game. So yeah, it was a good day out, but it's all about the context, isn't it? This is a game that's in between two massive Champions League matches, so It was all about get out of there unscathed.
And I made a note at the top of my little list of things to say. How many times are we going to say ahead of Wednesday in this podcast? So let's see. I'll have a little tally going before the end, but. It obviously was going to have after the Lord Mayor's show feel about it. Did it? Did they kind of rise to any sense of occasion?
No. There was a lot of positivity in the air, but ultimately, it was a little bit flat. I mean, look, it was the guy next to me, Lewis. Hello, Lewis, by the way, if you're watching. He sort of said, "Is in the league? Is this what it feels like to be like a mid-table team fan who's?" It's quite early in the season to feel like there's not a huge amount to play for. And so the fact that we've gone deep the last couple of years and we've still got a Champions League run to go for is something to hold on to. But yeah, there was just that bit of your brain telling you that it doesn't really amount to a huge amount. Okay, not losing is always sort of what we strive for, but at the same time, we were just trying to manage the minutes of players and maybe try one or two things out with players here and there, and it was a bit flat. Also, should be said, and I know we were guilty of this because we transferred the tickets as well, but there were lots of different faces. There were lots of tickets available on Ticket Exchange up until relatively late on, so there's obviously a big swathe of people in the season ticket holder group who have said, well, actually, now that there's less riding on these league games, I will put my ticket on Ticket Exchange. And it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand you get new people coming who aren't as au fait with maybe some of the songs or the people around them to get songs going and things like that, but at the same time they've got a great opportunity to come along and see the team. So a few different faces around us and an okay atmosphere. I must say the clock end with the Ashburton Army, that seemed pretty lively as it always is. I think they're very buoyed by all the events from Madrid, the previous game, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of them who are going away to Madrid as well, and so they're riding that wave. But it was fine. It was a good day.
A few half and half scarves and people watching on their mobiles.
Well, I couldn't possibly comment, although there was a few nudge, wink, winks, and looking at people. Yeah,
I suppose Arteta would have been thinking with his professional hat on. Yes, we are, looking ahead to Wednesday. There we go, number one. But also there's that thing of you don't want to lose momentum and make so many changes and make it such a dead rubber that you lose momentum as a club, kind of thing, going into such a big fixture. So there is that sort of balance to be had. And with that in mind, the lineup, as it was, Tierney coming in at left back, Partey in for, I put Timber/White because I expected what I think probably a lot of us expected White to start, but he picked up a knock, didn't he, in training. Zinni was left right 8, Jorginho holding, Rice back in at left 8, and then Trossard and Ethan came in for Marino and Saka. what were your thoughts on that lineup?
Well, we all expected changes. Perhaps some of those changes weren't the ones we thought would happen. I was expecting pretty much the same team that started against Everton. Was quite surprised not to see Sterling feature, to utilise him in whatever way we could. Although perhaps it was Arteta looking at some of the other squad players who might come in use when we go to Madrid on Wednesday. There's number 2. So the fact that Tierney came on as a sub against Madrid probably suggested that he was going to get those minutes. He's probably looking at Zinchenko, from a midfield point of view, and what he might be able to do. But yeah, I was also quite surprised to see Martinelli start. And given some of the treatment he got during the game, that seemed like a hell of a risk. So, but it sort of was what it was. I think the biggest thing that a lot of us commented on, like you said, was White's setback. It's another. It's not a killer blow because he's not been available for a lot of the season, but it's just frustrating, and as it must be for him as well, because he'll want to contribute as much as possible. As good as it is for the likes of, I don't know, Tierney to be coming on as a sub against Real Madrid, who thought that would be happening only a few months ago. But yeah, Ben White not being able to supplement what we have is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. And it is pretty typical of coming back after a long layoff, isn't it, to pick up these niggles and almost like relapses. And he's had a few little such moments, and you just hope that it's not long before he's kind of, featuring regularly again. And Tierney, you mentioned Tierney. The first note I've got on the game was just saying we didn't need the semi-automatic offside system to see that he was offside.
Right.
I was watching on a crappy stream on a train, and even I could see that he was off. Yeah, it's weird that they've brought that in for the last 7 games. What do we make of that?
The alternative is that they bring it in like most of these trial things that they do at the start of the season and then seems to fade away after 6 weeks. Maybe by bringing it now, they work out any bugs that occur so that start of next season, we're good to go. I mean, that might be the only thing I can, think of. Like, it's fine. It was the big talking point yesterday was nothing to do with offsides. It was that tackle.
That tackle, which I'll come to. And any other talking points in the first half, or should we just get into that tackle?
No, not particularly. I mean, like you say, it was a bit disappointing. I felt like the goal coming as early as it did might have helped settle the way we sort of played. But the fact that it was then ruled out meant that the game being in the balance was a little bit tricky. And I just felt like, the longer it went on, the more energy we'd have to expel, and I just didn't really know how much the result mattered in comparison to managing the team at this point. But Brentford don't particularly have anything to play for, as much as their players are fully committed, and Wissa and Mbuemo are very, very good. Ultimately, we should be perhaps doing a little bit better. I don't know. It was hard to judge any particular aspects of tactics and things like that, because ultimately so many changes, and that rhythm that is always going to be slightly disrupted. It's hard to really analyse.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That tackle then, I've watched it again this morning, along with some of the commentary around it from, I say, pundits in inverted commas, the likes of Redknapp. And he trotted out that glorious line that we're all familiar with. He's not that type of player. The Shawcross. It's just annoys me so much, that line. If you're going to, Anyway, he goes in with 2 feet and hooks his body round. You don't see him as a red card, so I don't feel like it is. It is a dangerous tackle. Of course it is. This is Redknapp. Now, I've also had a little look at the definition of what is considered dangerous, and it does tick every criteria: speed, intensity, force, degree of control, point and extent of contact. And then if it's like, that's my dog, high, full, forceful contact on ankle or above is considered dangerous. In other words, red card. Now, he was practically around his thighs by the time the
Yeah.
tackle finished. So, yeah, your view on that, please, Steph.
A bit obscured at the time in the ground from our corner because we are quite away from it. But ultimately, it was the way he lunged and left the ground. Like it was really hard to sort of justify. And I think a lot of what we've complained about referees this season is that inconsistency. We've literally got red cards this season for things that don't even come close to what that seemed to be. And when you think that it's a first choice winger who is looking to get through the game and, you know, do things this season, and as he said, I mean, Holly sort of mentioned this as well, chatting to us in our WhatsApp group. He's quite glad that Martinelli said what he said. So post-match, Martinelli wasn't very accepting of the apologies. He said, no, that guy could have broke my leg, and that could have been, you know, real long term. It wasn't a great challenge. And this is in the wake of, so we're recording this at sort of tea time on Sunday. Earlier today, Real Madrid played Alaves and Mbappe was sent off for a really horrible challenge. He does that thing where he almost skips up on one leg and then stamps down with the other at the player's planted leg and shin, and properly like bends it's awful, like really cowardly challenge. Well, this one yesterday from the Brentford player was more reckless. You know, he's leapt off the floor and it's wrapped his legs around Martinelli. I'm not sure what the referee's seeing. I just don't get it.
And he's completely out of control
That's
as
the
well
thing.
with it. That if he had planted leg and he'd caught him with that degree of force, he's going to be seriously injured with that challenge. So it got me thinking: Are we punishing the action or the result? Because he got up and trotted off.
Mm-hmm.
Are we saying that because the challenge, yes, although it was dangerous, didn't result in an injury, we're gonna treat that as a yellow, which for me is kind of not what the point is of having the rules there. And
that's not what how the rules have been applied in the past.
No, not at all. But that's what it seems to be this day. Had he rolled around on the floor and had he, suffered a real injury, well, he did roll around a bit, but but it just, I'm just leaving it hanging there. I suppose it is within a context of like what are Reds given for. I get that, and we've suffered so many this season that we can obviously talk forever about inconsistencies. But yeah, and to apply Holly's golden rule of would you have been okay if that was given against us? If that was one of our guys?
If an Arsenal player makes a tackle like that, you're calling him an idiot and saying, well, you've left yourself open.
You've given the ref a decision.
Oh, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, no, absolutely. I could totally understand that. I feel like we had a similar one. So there was that, do you remember the Disgracia game up at Newcastle? There was a really heavy challenge that came in from Havertz, and albeit I'm up in the clouds in the away end watching that, it again, like you said before, the force. Havertz leapt. He has a foot on the floor, sure, but he has one leg extended, and he's going with some force. And when it happened, I went, well, he could be in trouble here. You just wondered how it would go. So. Yeah, no, I can flip it and say that, if an Arsenal player had made that challenge, you wouldn't complain too much about a red card coming out. Not at all.
Yeah.
So that was
fair enough. Second half, I guess, the first goal.
Brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah. I've heard some people, and I don't know if this is kind of like trying to dismantle it after the fact kind of thing, and some people saying, okay, maybe that's a tactic that we would be employing against Real Madrid. They're going to be coming on to us, trying to get all those goals. So by Raya being able to distribute quickly and us hit on the counter, that could be something that's really useful. Look, I think we're a good enough team to exploit those things. Raya recently has been looking to kick or distribute fairly quickly. Rice just gallops through the midfield, and then I didn't notice this at the time, but someone pointed it out to me. Rice is clearly aware of the runners around him. He knows Partey is on that side. He also knows that the Brentford players, some are covering him, and some are then moving to cover Partey. So he does a little kind of move to kind of commit the player that's thinking of going to cover Partey, but moves in such a way that he brings him back to him, only to then release the ball to Partey, who can just finish nice and cleanly. So it was good thinking by David Raya, but it was a goal really made by Declan Rice. I
Absolutely.
mean, the week he is having is unreal.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a cringy vibe in the crowd of any time that we got a set piece, and there was a lot of shoots being shouted.
From the halfway line.
By the crowd, from anywhere, even from corners. It was just a bit crazy. But yeah, that gallop through, and Partey got his goal. Everyone was quite complimentary of his performance against Madrid. All right, he's playing at fullback against Brentford, but he was good. He was okay. The worry is that obviously later on he was, slightly injured.
Yes.
Not heard anything since then. But no, it was a very, very good goal to take the lead, and it's just a shame we couldn't hold on to it.
Yes. I think credit Martinelli as well, who made a run to open up that move with Rice as well. So, yeah, after that goal, though, we made 3 subs. I wondered at that point whether or not, well, not at that point, but after they got their equaliser, whether making those 3 subs straight away unsettled us slightly, the rhythm. I mean, I look at their goal and there is a bit of a confusion in there where I think Martinelli got blocked trying to cover his man, and Trossard and him looked to be in no man's land on their right, on the Brentford right. What was your view of that?
Again, just it looked like players not reacting quick enough. The subs, it was interesting because everyone knew that who the likely subs were going to be. There was a lot of pre-planned, get some minutes in their legs kind of things, and you think, we looked at the bench, there's Saka, there's Lewis Skelly, there's Odegaard. Okay, we'll bring them on and we'll see how we go. And albeit Saka and Odegaard, had a lot of endeavour about them, didn't bring an awful lot. It wasn't like there was a sudden shift in the team and their sort of mentality. So that was hard to manufacture. And it was just disappointing. But at the same time, a draw against Brentford, grand scheme of things, where we are in the season,
context.
Yeah.
And I think here's another one, ahead of Wednesday. I think those subs were very much with getting some sort of grease on the cogs ahead of Wednesday. Maybe he wouldn't have made those subs quite in the way that he did. He wanted to get a good half an hour into Saka and Odegaard particularly, I think.
So Holly's message as his thoughts on yesterday, and
let's have it.
Generally said similar to what we've said. He said yesterday's game just felt like something we needed to get through before the main event next week. Ding! There's another one for the tally. And then, obviously, as we know, there has been a few back and forths in the WhatsApp chat about these sorts of games and the draws and the context of the season. So I know you can put your side across in a moment, but Holly, and I think myself to a certain extent, it's this thing of, we got that one goal, but it felt like that was assumed to be enough. And, a team like Brentford who are canny, and it's never going to be enough. And Holly says here that if the defence was so porous and responsible for all our above average in terms of number of draws or drop points this season, then why is there precious little focus on this side of our game in the summer transfer window? All our targets predominantly will be in or for the attacking part of the game, certainly the major ones at least. And I think it's just that thing of, I noticed it certainly more at Everton, it felt like, because, I don't know, Everton looked more porous, I think, to a certain extent, where we didn't go for that killer instinct. We didn't go for that second. It felt like a kind of what we have, we hold, and we'll see where the chips fall. But they obviously didn't work out that way because a penalty is given away, albeit an incredibly soft one that probably wasn't a penalty. But actually, by scoring 2, by putting on the pressure a little bit more, maybe it takes away the risk of a stupid decision against you.
Of course it does, yeah.
Yeah, and again, both of these things can be right.
Well, that's my point, is both things can be true.
Yeah.
So, when you're not scoring loads, which we're not, you need those defensive actions to be stronger. Interesting, Arteta picked up on that and was critical of our defending on the goal. He alluded to defend the second ball better. You know what they're good at, and we let them do it basically. So if we defend well, maybe we win 1-0.
And he's been honest 2 weeks in a row then, because of Everton, it was a game we dominated, but that penalty decision was not a penalty. And then this week, it's another game that we've kind of dominated, albeit without huge amount of chances, and then kind of lapsed when it comes to the goal we've conceded. But ultimately, I think context is too hard to ignore. Before Everton, Madrid were coming up at home.
Yes.
And now we're playing Brentford, and we've got to go to Madrid away. And psychologically, that's going to have an impact. I just want to mention again, and I know he's got a bit of a battering off us this season, but of all the players to come into the side through the changes, so I'm not counting Rice, Martinelli, because they'll probably start against Madrid. But of all the players to come in from the changes, Trossard is probably the closest to knocking on the door for a starting berth. And I thought he was disappointing again. I thought his lack of intensity, and his intensity in his running, intensity in his passing, intensity in his just general sort of body language. And he's playing a fairly thankless task as a false nine against a fairly combative Brentford side. So I get that to a certain extent, but I don't know, I just got bad vibes from him again.
Recency bias as well, isn't it? Because we've seen a lot of this of him recently, of just not quite posting the right, and that today he would have got a pass from us because of exactly as you said, he's playing in a kind of relatively dead rubber, and he's a false nine, and it's not, we're not pinning too much hope on him, but it's just what we've had to endure of him recently, where it maybe has mattered more, that we're feeling the pain.
Do you think he goes
a
in
bit
the
more
summer?
keenly? Well, I look at him and I wonder. I think he possibly does. He's on the list of those that I would take a decent offer from Saudi or whatever. His last big contract. We were saying the same about Sterling. And it's not about a specific age and something clicks, because Ronaldo's still banging them in and looking incredible, physical specimen. And then you look at Sterling and see how he's dropped off a cliff. So I do wonder whether with Trossard there are certain points of his game that make him, the player that he was, say, last season, that have dropped off a bit.
Yeah. And
that we're now looking at a player in his natural decline, just, potentially.
And then we got a bit more Madrid practice by defending with 10 men at the end of the game, didn't we? I didn't see. We saw Jorginho walking off, sort of holding his arm. We weren't sure if it was his shoulder. Was it his ribs? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So potentially, he said he couldn't breathe properly after the game. So it could be broken ribs.
Yeah. Well, that'll be his season then. But yeah, weirdly, we sort of looked slightly better with 10.
And Saka had a bit of a chance, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Shoot!
Bent one at the end, yep, shoot. There was a huge cry of that as well at the end, yep. It was, you could see he went back to that holding pattern of looking to cut inside and do that classic bend to the far post, and only managed to get one away in injury time. And for my nephew's sake, I wish he'd scored it, because that would have been a nice way to cap it off. But ultimately, look, a draw leaves us where we are. Forest lost, so if anything, we've slightly strengthened our position in second by a point. So what can you say?
Chelsea drew, I think, today.
Chelsea drew with Ipswich at home, which, their season seems to be petering slightly. Newcastle obviously won this afternoon very heavily. I think they're probably up there with City now to lock in those Champions League places. But yeah, and Villa won actually quite well and missed a couple of penalties. They could have had a silly scoreline, but yeah, we are where we are.
Yes. And again, with an eye on Wednesday, the post-match presser was revealed a few, of the doubts we had over the injuries. Nothing more on Partey, just that he felt something, inverted commas, and so we wait on that. White as well. I guess he probably wouldn't be a starter anyway, but we just, like we said earlier, we just want him back as soon as possible. One note I did make was about Ethan, in that, and I'm not slating him at all, but it's just a natural kind of developmental kind of issue going on with him, whereby he came in with such a bang, and that he's now kind of plateauing and finding games a little more difficult. You know, the final, I suppose, the final actions of a forward are under more scrutiny. And when you look at the stats on a page and go, oh, what, he only completed 65% of his passing. Well, that's because he's a forward player, and if you said that,
yeah,
exactly. So you can't compare with a defender and say, well, look at this defender with 95%. Well, you'd expect your defenders to have
just passing across the back line or two back and forth to the keeper. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was just a point of notice. I just noticed that he'd had a quiet game yesterday, while MLS seems to go, you know, he's aside from the red card debacle and the red card that he did pick up justifiably, I think, against West Ham. Otherwise, his trajectory has been phenomenal. So he's obviously a shoo-in for Wednesday. Anything else on the game, on the Brentford game?
No, not particularly. I mean, you said about Waneri as well, but he's also playing out wide, and it was noticeable that there were moments he did that Saka thing of sort of drifting in, you know, trying to go across the penalty box, and I sort of want to see him there. I know it's Odegaard's position, and again, I wonder if, I know he tried Zinchenko there, but I'd love to have seen Waneri there and maybe just stick Sterling out wide or something. But I think his natural game will be more central eventually. I don't know, but because he needs to maximise the number of touches he gets on the ball, whereas out on the wing, you know, unless it builds up along that side, he might be a bit more sort of static for a while. But he's still so young.
He's so young, and it's cruel to compare him with someone like Saka, you know, in that similar kind of position as well, because that's ridiculous, quite frankly. Good. Okay, well, we'll park the bees there then, and I suppose now all eyes are on Wednesday, having mentioned it about 10 times.
As they kind of have been for 2 weeks.
Already. Yeah, very much so. What are you're going. So,
I am going, yeah. So in about, what it'll be, nearly 48 hours, I'll be, you know, flying out on a very, very early flight on the Tuesday to Madrid. I am really looking forward to it, but I've got life to do in between now and then, to tick off all my chores and things like that. So, yeah, I can't wait.
But when you're there, you'll be immersed in the occasion.
It'll be great.
What's the sort of the kind of plan? Are you going to get there? What are you going to do? You're going to go and see Madrid a bit?
Yep. So we're getting there sort of midday-ish flying out to Alicante because it's cheaper, you know, because as soon as the airline companies find out a football match is on somewhere, the prices just, you know, go through the roof. So we're flying to Alicante and getting the train up to Madrid. We'll have a good afternoon and evening on the Tuesday to soak up the sights. And then Wednesday is all about match day. There's already information on various social media platforms about where fans might congregate. There's been a big thing this year. So a few people who I catch the coach to the game with have been to a couple of the Europeans already this season, and the stringency on the tickets. Lots of clubs across Europe now, as Arsenal are doing as well, they want to know who is in that seat. You know, it's a way to stop touting, and that's to be commended. But it does mean a lot of extra checks. So a lot of people have advised, you know, yes, you might be in the ground early, but get there early. You don't want to be leaving things to chance, and you have to take a lot of ID and all that sort of thing. So it's my first one for a while, since Seville, actually, a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, that's another layer to think about, but I'm, you know, buzzing for that. And then what we've decided to do is fly back really late on the Thursday. So we've got most of the Thursday as well to take a time, do what we want to do. We might even jet across to Alicante and maybe see a bit of Alicante before we catch our flight back. But yeah, nicely spread out. And then when we're back on the Friday, it's Good Friday into a bank holiday weekend.
Let's hope it's a Good Friday, Steph. Is all I can say. I'm just reminded of what Holly made a note of, which was that the in the build-up to the game, obviously there's a lot of mind games going on. Anything a Real player or
we're seeing all
anyone
sorts.
connected with Real is coming out now. It's all mind games. They're going to close the roof to create a cauldron-like atmosphere. You know, they said to, I think it was Mbappe, you know, can you turn it around? And apparently he just shrugged and said, of course. You know, and why not? They've won it 15 times. The history they have in this tournament and beyond is remarkable. So obviously it would destroy us.
But it would destroy us, and it's unique to us because it's been so long since we've been in a situation like this. Normally we're the ones who have been done 3-0 in the first leg.
Well, yeah.
Trying to come back. I remember that Milan one when we were 4-0 down, 3-0 down? And so, yeah, hearing things of, you know, their ultras are planning like big fireworks setting off
outside the hotel.
Outside the hotel. There's going to be some kind of special emotional video to try and motivate people. And you're thinking, okay, we're the people who have done this, which is quite unique for us. And there is that thing now. It's in the back of everyone's heads about what happens if they score quite early, and what if they get another, and then oh no. There's a lot of rationalising and bargaining and praying and God knows what else going on. We should be confident. We should go 3-0, easy. And then I keep hearing people go, oh yeah, I'm not worried because the last time we conceded 3 goals was against Luton and we still won that game 4-3. And it's like, I'm not sure that those two are hugely related, but I'll take it where I can. I was at that game as well and that was something special. God.
Well, especially getting in and out, as I remember, from the alleyways and the back doubles
looking
of the
in
houses.
people's bathroom windows. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Can't wait. I think it'll be slightly different in the Bernabeu.
I imagine so, ever so slightly. I think Holly and I have chosen the same team. So just to make it easy for me, would you mind reading out Holly's team?
He has clarified it by saying that he doesn't know about the Partey or Timber situation because Timber apparently wasn't fit enough to start, but he's assuming they're fit and he's gone with Raya in goal. Back 4, Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis Skelly. Midfield 3, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, and then front 3, Saka, Marino, Martinelli. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of as was really, wasn't it, from the first leg? So.
Yes. So assuming Partey's okay, do you have any deviation from that?
No, not at all. Look, it's the best side. It's also the best balanced side. Although, you know, if we were going to talk about it, if Partey's not fit, my natural move might be to move Rice into the holding situation and maybe move Marino back and have Trossard. Or maybe that's the time to then play Martinelli centre forward with Trossard on the left so that you've got Martinelli's out-and-out pace, I suppose. But then I'd prefer him on the wing, tracking back. But ultimately, I think that shift Rice in to the midfield for Partey if he's not available and just move Marino back. Like, that would be the natural thing to do. If Timber's not available, then we might have an issue because who do you play at right back? White's clearly probably not going to be fit for it. Do you play one of the left backs, Zinchenko and Tierney at right back? I mean, you get into all sorts then, don't you? So we have to kind of hope that Timber's the one. I think Partey could be covered for, but yeah, I'd prefer Partey there because he was great against Madrid, and he took his goal really well against Brentford. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, scores.
Right. Holly's got a long one here. He says, I say we'll lose the game, but go through. Want to say we'll score a 91st minute goal to make it 3-1, but not sure the nerves will take that. So I'll go for a 2-1 defeat, with our goal coming early, so never any real sense of jeopardy. I like that way of thinking, and I have to say, I like that way of thinking so much, that's what I had as well. I've got Madrid winning 2-1, so we still go through. Yeah.
I've got us losing 1-0.
Okay, good.
As I did in the first leg. So this is me kind of wish casting a bit.
Nice.
But I figure the longer I mean, this is Captain Obvious, But the longer we hold out, the more frustrated they become. I expect us to be, very resolute. The thing with Real is that they are superb on the break. Their speed is frightening. So if we set up as the away team, as I expect us to, and not do anything stupid in the first 20 odd just to quieten the crowd, then that plays into our, game plan. I really don't expect us to be too adventurous in that opening 20 or so.
I'm so excited about the trip, but yeah, the more I think about the game, the more nervy I get. And like I say, but Real Madrid also aren't in great shakes either. They were disappointing in the first game against us.
It's the aura. We're playing the aura.
We are playing aura. In the way that when we played Bayern last year, Bayern weren't great shakes either, but we're playing Bayern.
And we've got the wounds.
We've got the scars. Well, we don't have the scars against Madrid, but they are Real Madrid at the end of the day. So they'll rely on that. The thing I'm really not looking forward to is whatever antics or shenanigans go on during the game. There will be rolling around. There will be arms gesticulating. There will be in-your-face referee, cards waved. Oh, my God. There'll be laser pens pointing down from the stands when Rice is lining up for a free kick. I can see him coming on with, Edgar Davids style sports goggles just to kind of, so he doesn't get the glare of a laser pointer in his eyes. It's going to be horrendous. One thing I should say about my experience going there, because I've obviously got my tickets now. We're in the 6th tier. This is the thing. This is how big their stadium is. If I'm reading the ticket right, we're essentially in the 6th tier. So might take some kind of giant telephoto lens to see whatever game is going on. I'll be messaging you going, tell me what's happening.
Yeah. It's like Newcastle up in the gods.
It will be a little bit, I think. So, yeah. Wow. But yeah, the antics, I'm not looking forward to that side of things. But we'll see how we go. But what a position to be in. 3-0 up from the first leg. God, I'd have bitten off more than a hand to have that. So bring it on. Saliba, Raya. They're good enough to do it. I think they are good enough to do it.
These are the games they've wanted to play in. So if you can't rise to the occasion here, then what are you doing?
Exactly.
Is how I see it. Any other business before we wrap?
If anyone who's watching or listening, just keep looking at our socials, because I'll be posting videos of all the antics out there, and I've put a call out if any Gooners are going out there and they want to follow our socials, because I'll be sharing as much as I can, because it's going to be a big one.
Certainly is. Right. Thanks for joining, mate, and good luck.
De nada.
What can I say? Yeah, de nada. Yeah. Thanks to everyone listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.
Adios.
Adios. The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at NorthBankPod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.